The industrial strength adhesive oozed from Raven Blackwood's locker like toxic honey, sealing every edge while 3 varsity wrestlers filmed her humiliation with their phones. 23 other students had walked past in the last 10 minutes, but nobody dared help the only black girl brave enough to reject Grayson Whitfield's Valentine's proposal in front of the entire cafeteria. What they didn't know was that Raven's mother worked for the FBI's Cyber Crimes Division, and every single video they posted would become evidence in the federal case that would destroy their futures forever. Before we dive into Raven's story, I just want to take a quick moment to say thank you for being here. I know stories like these can be tough to hear, but they're also incredibly important because somewhere out there, someone might be facing their own hallway moment, feeling trapped and alone. Your support helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them most, who need to know they're not crazy, they're not overreacting, and they're definitely not alone. The morning air at Pinehurst Academy carried the scent of privilege and fresh-cut grass, a combination that 17-year-old Raven Blackwood had learned to navigate like a minefield. She stepped off the city bus at 7:15 a.m., her scholarship the only reason she could walk through the wrought iron gates of the most exclusive private school in Ashford, Connecticut. The February chill bit through her second-hand blazer, but she kept her chin high, her twist out perfectly defined despite the 40-minute commute from the other side of town. "Morning, Raven." Her friend Sage Chen waved from the stone steps, clutching a thermos of tea. Sage was one of the few students who understood what it meant to be different. Here, her parents owned a small restaurant, not a hedge fund. Raven smiled, adjusting her backpack. The weight of her AP textbooks was nothing compared to the weight of being one of 12 black students in a school of 800. "Ready for Valentine's Day madness?" Sage rolled her eyes. "The flower deliveries started at 7. Apparently, someone ordered 100 red roses for Grayson Whitfield." Of course they did. Grayson Whitfield was Pinehurst royalty captain of the wrestling team, son of a pharmaceutical executive, and possessor of the kind of confidence that came from never hearing the word no. His family's donations had built the new science wing, and everyone knew it. The main hallway bustled with pre-class energy. Pink and red decorations dripped from every surface, and the student council had set up tables selling candygrams for $5 each. Raven navigated through clusters of students, catching fragments of conversation about who was asking whom to the Valentine's formal. She reached her locker number 347, 3rd floor, tucked in a corner where the security cameras had a blind spot. Not that it mattered. Security at Pinehurst was more concerned with keeping the wrong people out than monitoring what happened inside. First period, advanced chemistry, passed without incident. Raven partnered with Sage for the lab experiment, carefully measuring reagents while their classmates gossiped about Valentine's plans. Dr. Hernandez nodded approvingly at their precision. Raven's ticket to MIT wasn't just her grades, but her genuine love for science. It was during second period that the first note appeared. Raven found it tucked into her calculus textbook. Expensive cardstock that probably cost more than her lunch budget for the week. The handwriting was bold, almost aggressive. "You're too beautiful to sit alone at lunch. Join me today. G.W." She crumpled it without a second thought. Grayson Whitfield had never spoken to her in 3 years, and she wasn't naive enough to think his sudden interest was genuine. Valentine's Day at Pinehurst was less about romance and more about social positioning. Who could make the biggest gesture, claim the most desirable date, assert their dominance in the complex hierarchy. By third period, 2 more notes had appeared. The second was in her English literature folder. I don't take no for an answer. See you at lunch. G. The third was taped to her history textbook. Last chance to say yes the easy way, Grayson. He's not going to stop, Sage whispered during their shared free period in the library. Remember what happened to Destiny Williams last year? Reven remembered. Destiny had rejected Bryce Morrison's homecoming proposal. And suddenly, her car tires were slashed. Her college recommendation letters went missing. And anonymous posts about her appeared on the school gossip Instagram. Destiny had transferred by Thanksgiving. I'm not Destiny, Reven said quietly, but her hands shook slightly as she organized her notes. Lunch arrived like a storm system moving in. The cafeteria at Pinehurst looked more like an upscale restaurant than a school eating area, round tables with actual tablecloths, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lacrosse field, and a salad bar that offered 16 types of organic greens. Reven sat at her usual table near the back exit with Sage and their friend Marcus Rivera, another scholarship kid who understood the unspoken rules of survival. They were halfway through discussing their physics project when a shadow fell across the table. Grayson Whitfield stood there like he owned the air around him. 6 feet 2 inches of entitled muscle, with perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of tan that came from winter trips to Aspen. Behind him stood his usual crew, Bentley Nash and Colton Bridges, fellow wrestlers who served as his personal enforcement squad. The cafeteria noise dimmed. Phones appeared in hands, subtle but ready. Everyone loved drama, especially when it involved someone like Grayson making a move. Reven, his voice carried across the suddenly quiet space. I've been trying to reach you all morning. She looked up from her sandwich, keeping her expression neutral. I got your notes. And he smiled, the kind of smile that expected compliance. The Valentine's formal is tomorrow night. You're coming with me. It wasn't a question. That was the thing about boys like Grayson. They phrased demands as statements, expecting the universe to bend to their will. No, thank you, Reven said clearly. The silence that followed was suffocating. Someone actually gasped. Nobody said no to Grayson Whitfield, especially not publicly, especially not the scholarship girl who should be grateful for any attention from Pinehurst royalty. His smile flickered. I don't think you understand. I'm not asking. I'm telling you that you're coming to the formal with me. I already told everyone. Then you'll have to tell them you were wrong. Reven stood, gathering her tray. I said no. Bentley stepped forward. You need to show some respect. Respect is earned, Reven replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. And nothing about this conversation has earned mine. Grayson's face darkened. The golden boy wasn't used to defiance, especially not from someone he considered beneath him. You're making a mistake. The only mistake would be saying yes to someone who thinks he can order me around like property. She shouldered her bag. Enjoy your formal. She walked away, Sage and Marcus scrambling to follow. Behind them, the cafeteria erupted in whispers. Reven could feel hundreds of eyes on her back, could sense the phones recording, could practically hear the gossip spreading like wildfire. That was incredible, Marcus whispered as they escaped into the hallway. And also possibly suicidal. You know what Grayson's capable of, right? Reven knew. Everyone knew. Grayson Whitfield didn't just have money and athletic prowess, he had connections. His father played golf with the headmaster. His mother was on the board of trustees. When Grayson decided someone needed to be put in their place, the entire social machinery of Pinehurst Academy would align to make it happen. The afternoon passed in tense anticipation. Reven caught people staring in every class. whispers following her through the halls. The story had already mutated. Some versions had her throwing water in Grayson's face. Others claimed she'd laughed at him. The truth was somehow more shocking. She'd simply said no and meant it. Her last class ended at 3:15 p.m. Reven always stayed late on Thursdays for SAT prep. But today, she just wanted to get home. She headed to her locker, mentally calculating if she had enough time to catch the 3:40 bus. That's when she saw them. Grayson, Bentley, and Colton stood by her locker, casual as could be. Bentley held something in his hand, a tube of something. They were laughing. That particular brand of cruel laughter that came from knowing you were untouchable. "Hey, Blackwood," Grayson called out as she approached. "Thought about my offer." "There was no offer," Reven said carefully. "Just a demand. And my answer hasn't changed. See, that's where you're wrong." He stepped closer, and she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with wrestling mat sweat. "At Pinehurst, when someone like me shows interest in someone like you, the correct response is gratitude." "Someone like me?" Reven's voice was dangerously quiet. "You know what I mean." His smirk was ugly now, all pretense of charm gone. "The scholarship girl, the diversity admission. You should be thanking me for even noticing you exist." The words hit like physical blows, each one calculated to remind her of her place in Pinehurst's ecosystem. But Reven had faced worse. She'd endured 3 years of microaggressions, of being the only black face in advanced placement classes, of teachers expressing surprise at her intelligence, of security guards following her in stores near campus. "I'll pass," she said, moving toward her locker. That's when she noticed the smell sharp, chemical, wrong. Her hand froze on the combination lock. "Oh, did we forget to mention?" Colton's voice was full of fake innocence. "Your locker seems to be stuck." The realization hit her like ice water. They'd glued it shut. The industrial adhesive Bentley was poorly concealing was the type used in tech class for permanent bonds. Every seam of her locker had been sealed, the glue already hardening into an impenetrable barrier. "All my textbooks are in there," Reven said, her voice tight. "My homework, my tablet." "Should have thought about that before you embarrassed me," Grayson said. "Consider this a lesson in respect." And students had begun to gather, drawn by the drama. Phones appeared, recording everything. Reven stood there, fury and humiliation warring in her chest. Her bus pass was in that locker, her house keys, the flash drive with her college essays, everything. "This is destruction of property," she said. "I'll report this." "To who?" Bentley laughed. "My dad's best friends with campus security. Grayson's mom basically owns this place. You think anyone's going to care about your locker?" They were right, and everyone knew it. That was the special cruelty of Pinehurst. The rules existed, but only for people like her. The wealthy students operated in a different reality, where consequences were negotiable and crimes were rebranded as pranks. "Come on," Grayson said, his voice dropping to a patronizing tone. "Just say yes to the formal, and we'll get maintenance to open it. One night, that's all. You wear a nice dress. We take some pictures. Everyone's happy." "You mean you get to parade me around like a trophy?" Reven shot back. "The black girl you conquered." "No thanks." His face flushed red. "You think you're too good for me? I think I have standards that don't include dating racists who vandalize property when they don't get their way." The crowd murmured. Someone whispered. She called him racist. The R word at Pinehurst was like dropping a bomb. Everyone claimed to be progressive. But calling out actual racism was considered worse than the racism itself. "Watch your mouth," Colton stepped forward aggressively. "Or what?" Reven stood her ground. "You'll glue more of my property, destroy more of my things. Go ahead. Show everyone exactly who you really are." More students pressed in, the crowd growing. Teachers would arrive soon, but Reven knew how this would play out. The boys would claim it was a Valentine's prank gone wrong. They'd apologize insincerely, maybe pay for the locker to be fixed. Their parents would make donations to smooth things over, and Reven would still be the girl who couldn't take a joke, who played the race card, who didn't understand Pinehurst culture. But something in the crowd's energy was different today. Maybe it was the blatancy of the harassment, or the way Grayson's mask had slipped to reveal the ugliness beneath. Several students were filming, and not with the usual glee for drama. Their expressions were troubled, angry even. "This is messed up," someone muttered. "She said no." Another voice added, "He should have left it alone." Grayson sensed the shift. His confident smirk wavered. "Everyone just calm down. We're leaving. But this isn't over." Blackwood. They pushed through the crowd, Bentley shoulder-checking Marcus as they passed. The gathered students slowly dispersed, but not before Reven caught several sympathetic looks. A few people even asked if she needed help, though no one seemed to know what to do about a glued locker. "I have to get home," Reven said to Sage, frustration cracking her calm facade. "My mom gets off work at 6, and if I'm not there—" "Use my phone," Sage offered. "Call her, explain what happened." But Reven was already thinking beyond the immediate crisis. As she stared at her sealed locker, a plan began forming. Grayson thought he'd won. Thought he'd put her in her place. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Her mother, Dr. Amara Blackwood, wasn't just any FBI employee. She specialized in cybercrime, particularly cases involving harassment and digital evidence. Every video being posted right now, every message in Grayson's group chats, every electronic trail of his pattern of behavior, it was all evidence. "Actually," Reven said slowly, "can you record this for me? The whole locker, all the glue, everything." Sage pulled out her phone. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that Grayson Whitfield just made a very expensive mistake." Reven's smile was sharp as a blade. "He thinks the rules don't apply to him. But federal law doesn't care how much his daddy donates to Pinehurst." As Sage filmed the vandalized locker, Reven noticed something else. The security camera that usually had a blind spot at her locker corner was different. A small work order tag hung from it, recently serviced, which meant, for the first time in 3 years, there might actually be footage of what had just happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Check your email." A friend who's tired of their shit, too. Heart racing. Reven borrowed Sage's phone and logged into her email. There it was, a video file titled, "What Really Happened." She clicked play and gasped. Someone had filmed the entire gluing process from the classroom across the hall. The video showed Grayson giving orders, Bentley applying the adhesive with surgical precision, Colton keeping watch. But the real shock was the audio, their conversation while they worked. "This'll teach that uppity bitch!" Grayson's voice was crystal clear. "Thinks she can embarrass me. Her people need to learn their place at this school." "What if she reports it?" Bentley asked. "Then Daddy makes another donation and it goes away, just like with those other girls." Other girls. Plural. The video ended with them high-fiving as they walked away from her destroyed locker. Whoever filmed it had caught everything: the premeditation, the racial slurs, the admission of past incidents. Reven looked up from the phone to find more students gathering again. Word had spread about the video. Someone had already posted it to the anonymous Pinehurst Gossip Instagram. The comments were exploding. Holy shit! Did he really say her people? Those other girls, who else did they do this to? This is literally a hate crime. Her phone rang. Her mother's contact photo appeared on Sage's screen. Reven, baby, I just got a call from someone at your school. Are you okay? I'm fine, Mom. Reven took a deep breath. But I need you to contact your colleague in the Civil Rights Division. We have a situation. As she explained what had happened, Reven noticed the school administration finally arriving. Vice Principal Harrison pushed through the crowd, his face cycling through expressions as he took in the glued locker, the crowd of witnesses, and the phones still recording. Everyone back to class, he barked. Miss Blackwood, my office, now. But Reven wasn't the same scared freshman who'd arrived at Pinehurst 3 years ago. She'd learned to navigate their world, to excel despite their obstacles. And now, finally, she had proof of what students like her had always known, that beneath Pinehurst Academy's progressive facade lay a rot that needed to be exposed. I'll come to your office, she said clearly, making sure the still recording phones caught every word. But first, someone needs to open my locker. My property is inside, and this is criminal vandalism. I assume you'll be calling the police? Harrison's face went pale. Police at Pinehurst was unthinkable. They handled everything internally, quietly, with money changing hands behind closed doors. Let's not be hasty. Reven's voice rose. They glued my locker shut because I rejected a Valentine's date. There's video evidence of them using racial slurs while doing it. If this isn't a police matter, what is? The crowd murmured agreement. More phones appeared. The story was already spreading beyond Pinehurst's gates, shared and reshared with growing outrage. Harrison looked like he'd swallowed glass. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No, Reven stood tall, her mother's strength flowing through her. We are done discussing things privately. That's how people like Grayson Whitfield get away with it every time. Her phone buzzed again. The unknown number had sent another message. Check the wrestling team group chat, screenshots. You're not the first black girl they've targeted. Phoenix. Reven's heart skipped. Phoenix Coleman had been Pinehurst's star track athlete until she'd abruptly transferred last semester. The official story was family reasons, but rumors had swirled about an incident with the wrestling team. As she opened the attached screenshots, Reven realized the glued locker wasn't just petty revenge. It was part of a pattern, a system designed to put certain students in their place. But systems could be broken, especially when you had evidence, allies, and a mother who specialized in taking down people who thought they were untouchable. The screenshots were damning. Conversations about teaching the scholarship kids lessons, photos taken without consent, plans to humiliate anyone who didn't show proper deference to Pinehurst's elite. And at the center of it all, Grayson Whitfield, conducting harassment like a business. Miss Blackwood, Harrison tried again. I really must insist. He was cut off by the arrival of 2 uniformed police officers. Someone, probably multiple someones, had already called. The age of silent suffering at Pinehurst Academy was ending, one live stream at a time. We received multiple reports of vandalism and a possible hate crime, the older officer said. looking at the glued locker. "Who's the victim here?" "I am," Reven said clearly. "And I have evidence." As the officers began taking statements, as the crowd grew larger, as more stories began emerging from students who'd been silenced for too long, Reven felt something shift in the air of Pinehurst Academy. Grayson Whitfield thought he'd put her in her place with industrial glue and intimidation. Instead, he'd lit a fuse that would blow apart the careful constructs that protected predators like him. Her phone rang again. This time, it was a Connecticut area code she didn't recognize. "Miss Blackwood, this is Patricia Kumar from Channel 8 News. We're receiving multiple reports about an incident at Pinehurst Academy. Would you be willing to comment?" Reven looked at her glued locker, at the police taking photos, at the students finally finding their voices. Tomorrow, Grayson had planned to parade a Concord date at the Valentine's formal. Instead, he'd be facing something much less pleasant. "Yes," she said into the phone, "I have quite a lot to say." The revolution at Pinehurst Academy had begun with a rejected Valentine's invitation and a tube of industrial glue. But as the sirens wailed and the cameras rolled, one thing became crystal clear. Reven Blackwood was nobody's victim. She was their reckoning. The Channel 8 news van pulled up just as Principal Catherine Walsh arrived at Pinehurst Academy, her Mercedes screeching to a halt in the fire lane. She emerged looking like she'd been pulled from a fundraising gala pearl necklace, cocktail dress, and an expression of barely controlled panic as she took in the scene: police cars, news crews, and hundreds of students filming with their phones. "What is the meaning of this?" Walsh demanded, pushing through the crowd toward Vice Principal Harrison. "Ma'am, we have a situation," Harrison stammered. "Grayson Whitfield and—" "I don't want to hear names," Walsh hissed. "I want this handled, quietly." But quiet was no longer an option. Patricia Kumar from Channel 8 was already broadcasting live, her cameraman capturing the glued locker in high definition as Reven stood beside it, composed and articulate. "This isn't just about one locker or one rejected date," Reven said into the microphone. "This is about a culture at Pinehurst Academy that protects perpetrators and silences victims. I'm speaking out not just for myself, but for all the students who've been targeted and told to keep quiet." Inside the administrative offices, chaos reigned. Grayson Whitfield sat in a leather chair, his father Richard pacing behind him while their family lawyer spoke rapidly into a phone. Bentley and Colton occupied nearby chairs, their parents having been summoned from their respective corporate offices. "This is ridiculous," Richard Whitfield snapped. "It's glue, a prank, boys being boys." Detective Maria Santos, who had been assigned to the case, looked up from her tablet where she was reviewing the video evidence. "Mr. Whitfield, are you aware that your son and his friends explicitly used racial slurs while committing this vandalism that elevates this from a prank to a potential hate crime?" "That's taken out of context," the lawyer interjected. "Is 'her people need to learn their place' often used in a different context?" Detective Santos asked dryly. "Because I'm reviewing 3 separate videos that captured that statement quite clearly." Grayson shifted uncomfortably. The golden boy's swagger had evaporated, replaced by the dawning realization that Daddy's money might not fix this one. Meanwhile, Reven's mother had arrived. Dr. Amara Blackwood walked through Pinehurst's halls like an avenging angel in her FBI windbreaker, her badge visible and her expression deadly serious. She found Reven by her still-sealed locker, surrounded by supportive students. "Baby," she said, pulling Reven into a brief hug before turning her professional eye to the scene. "Show me everything." As Reven pulled up the videos and screenshots on her phone, more students approached. The dam had broken, and stories poured out. "They did the same thing to my car," said Jasmine Torres, a junior. "When I wouldn't go to homecoming with Tyler Matthews, except they used spray foam in my exhaust pipe." And they created a whole Instagram page ranking girls by how grateful they should be for white boy attention, added Sydney Kim. Anyone who scored low got targeted. Dr. Blackwood's expression grew grimmer with each revelation. She pulled out her phone and made a call. "Director Chen, it's Amara. We have a situation at my daughter's school that's escalated beyond local jurisdiction." "Yes, sir. Multiple victims. Documented pattern of harassment with racial components. I'll send you the files." Principal Walsh chose that moment to approach, her fundraising smile plastered on despite the circumstances. "Dr. Blackwood, I'm sure we can resolve this internally. Pinehurst has always—" "Ma'am," Dr. Blackwood interrupted, "your school is now under federal investigation for potential civil rights violations. I suggest you contact your legal department." The color drained from Walsh's face. Around them, students continued filming, broadcasting the principal's deer-in-headlights expression to thousands of viewers. By 5:30 p.m., the story had exploded beyond local news. Pinehurst glue was trending nationally, with celebrities and activists weighing in. The videos of Grayson's racist comments had been viewed over 1 million times. Pinehurst Academy's Facebook page was flooded with angry comments from alumni and parents demanding action. In the main conference room, an emergency board meeting had been called. Through the glass doors, Reven could see board members arguing, their voices raised enough to carry into the hallway. "We can't expel the Whitfield boy," someone said. "His family's donations. We can't not expel him." Another voice countered, "The FBI is involved. The media is camping outside. Our reputation—" "Should have thought about your reputation before enabling a culture of harassment," Dr. Blackwood muttered. Phoenix Coleman had driven up from her new school in Hartford. She walked through Pinehurst's doors with her head high. Though Reven noticed how her hands trembled slightly, they met in the library, away from the chaos. "I left because of them," Phoenix said quietly. "Grayson, Bentley, the whole crew, when I broke the school record in track, beating the white girls. They couldn't stand it. Started with comments, escalated to my equipment being destroyed, ended with—" She paused, gathering strength. "With an assault in the training room, but nobody believed me. Grayson's word against mine." "They'll believe you now," Reven said firmly. "We have evidence. We have numbers. We have power." Phoenix smiled sadly. "I have something else. I recorded some of it, not the assault, but the threats before. The planning. I was too scared to use it then. But—" She pulled out a flash drive. "Everything's on here. Audio files, screenshots, even a recording of Vice Principal Harrison telling me to think about my future before making unfounded accusations." By 7 p.m., the scope of the scandal had become clear. The FBI's preliminary investigation had uncovered what they termed a systemic pattern of discrimination and harassment. 17 students had come forward with stories. The wrestling team's group chat, subpoenaed within hours, revealed 2 years of coordinated campaigns against minority students who didn't show proper respect. Grayson, Bentley, and Colton were arrested at 8:43 p.m. The image of them being led out in handcuffs, past the very students they'd terrorized, would become iconic. Grayson's father tried to block the cameras, but there were too many, streaming from every angle. "This is a witch hunt," Richard Whitfield shouted. "My son is being railroaded for a childish prank." "Your son," Detective Santos said clearly, ensuring the media caught every word, "is being arrested for vandalism, harassment, conspiracy to commit hate crimes, and based on new evidence, potential assault charges. He has the right to remain silent." "I want to make a statement," Grayson interrupted, his lawyer frantically gesturing for him to stop. But panic had overridden sense. "She's lying. They're all lying. This is reverse racism, just because we're white and successful." His lawyer finally managed to silence him, but the damage was done. Every word had been captured, broadcast, immortalized. The entitled Prince of Pinehurst had revealed himself completely. The next morning, Pinehurst Academy looked like a war zone. News vans lined the street. Parents pulled up in luxury cars, some to withdraw their children, others to demand answers. The board had been in emergency session all night. Reven arrived to find maintenance finally opening her locker. Everything inside was intact, but would need professional cleaning to remove the glue residue. As she retrieved her belongings, Principal Walsh approached, flanked by board members. "Miss Blackwood," Walsh began, her voice carefully modulated, "on behalf of Pinehurst Academy, I want to apologize." "I don't want your apology," Reven interrupted. "I want change. Real change. Not diversity posters and empty promises." "What would you suggest?" asked Dr. Patricia Chen, the only Asian board member. Reven had been thinking about this all night. First, immediate expulsion for all students involved in the harassment ring. No negotiations, no reduced punishments for donations. Second, a complete review of all disciplinary actions from the past 5 years, with particular attention to cases involving minority students. Third, mandatory anti-racism training for all staff and students, conducted by outside experts, not some feel-good consultant you golf with. Fourth, an anonymous reporting system that bypasses school administration and goes directly to an independent review board. And fifth, Phoenix Coleman gets a formal apology and her record cleared of any disciplinary actions related to reporting her assault. The board members exchanged glances. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. "Those seem like reasonable starting points." "Starting points," Reven emphasized, "because this is just the beginning." Over the following weeks, the reckoning continued. The FBI investigation expanded, uncovering similar patterns at other elite prep schools. 3 more arrests were made as additional assaults came to light. Vice Principal Harrison was terminated after recordings proved he'd systematically discouraged students from reporting harassment. Grayson Whitfield's trial became national news. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence videos, chat logs, witness testimony from dozens of students. His defense attorney tried to paint him as a misguided young man caught up in prep school culture. But the jury wasn't buying it. The verdict came on a Thursday afternoon in May. Guilty on all counts. Grayson would serve 18 months in juvenile detention, 3 years probation, and was required to register as a hate crime offender. Bentley and Colton received similar sentences. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the halls of Pinehurst Academy, where change was finally taking root. The new principal, Dr. Keisha Williams, Pinehurst's first black administrator, implemented every reform Reven had suggested, and more. The wrestling team was disbanded, pending complete restructuring. Scholarship programs were expanded. The culture of silence was shattered. On the last day of school, Raven stood by her locker, the same one that had been glued shut 4 months earlier. Someone had painted a small phoenix on it, a symbol of rising from destruction. "Harvard, right?" Sage asked, joining her. "Full scholarship," Raven confirmed. "Pre-law, with a focus on civil rights." "They're lucky to have you." Raven thought about everything that had happened since that February afternoon. The fear, the anger, the moment she'd decided to fight back not just for herself, but for everyone who'd been silenced. "Hey, Raven," a freshman approached nervously. "I just wanted to say thank you. Because of you. I felt safe reporting when some seniors tried to corner me last week. They were expelled within 24 hours, as the girl walked away." Raven smiled. That was the real victory, not the headlines or the verdicts, but the knowledge that future students wouldn't have to endure what she and Phoenix and so many others had faced. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Proud of you, baby. You changed that place forever." Raven looked around the hallway one last time. Pinehurst Academy would never be perfect. Privilege and prejudice were too deeply rooted to disappear overnight. But it was better, safer, more just. And sometimes, that's how revolutions really worked, not with grand gestures, but with one person saying no more and refusing to back down, even when they glued your locker shut to silence you. As she walked out of Pinehurst's doors for the last time, Raven carried with her the knowledge that she'd done more than survive. She'd thrived, fought, and won. And in the process, she'd ensured that the next black girl who dared to reject a Valentine's invitation would face consequences measured in respect, not industrial adhesive. The glue had been meant to trap her. Instead, it had bonded together a movement that would outlast them all. Epilogue. 1 year later, Raven Blackwood stood at the podium in Harvard Law School's Ames courtroom, delivering her closing argument for the mock trial competition. Her opponent, a legacy student who'd prepped at Exeter, had just finished a technically perfect but passionless defense of a discriminatory housing policy. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Raven began, her voice carrying the same strength that had echoed through Pinehurst's halls. "The defense would have you believe that systemic discrimination is merely an unfortunate side effect of policy, not its intent. But, as we've seen through evidence and testimony, sometimes the cruelest injustices come wrapped in institutional language and procedural justifications." She won, of course, but more importantly, her professor pulled her aside afterward. "Miss Blackwood, the ACLU is looking for summer interns to work on educational equity cases. I've already recommended you." That evening, Raven's phone rang. Phoenix Coleman's name appeared on the screen. "Did you see the news?" Phoenix asked breathlessly. "Pinehurst just lost a $10 million lawsuit. 5 more victims came forward after we graduated." Raven pulled up the article on her laptop. The headline read, "Elite Prep School Faces Bankruptcy After Years of Discrimination Suits." The story detailed how the investigation she'd sparked had uncovered decades of covered-up incidents. Richard Whitfield was quoted, still defending his son, still claiming persecution. "There's more." Phoenix continued. "Grayson violated his probation, got caught harassing a girl at his community college. He's going back to detention. And this time, it's adult prison." Raven felt no satisfaction at this news, only a grim sense of justice. Some people learned from consequences. Others just found new victims. A notification popped up on her screen, an email from Dr. Keisha Williams. Pinehurst's principal. Dear Reven, I wanted to update you on the changes since your courageous stand. We've implemented every reform and more. Our minority enrollment has increased by 40%. Not a single harassment incident has gone unreported or unpunished this year. More importantly, we're creating the Reven Blackwood Scholarship for students who show exceptional courage in standing up to injustice. The first recipient is a young woman named Aria Martinez, who organized a walkout when a teacher made discriminatory comments. You changed this institution forever. But more than that, you showed every student here that their voice matters, that justice is possible, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be silenced. Would you consider speaking at graduation? The students voted unanimously to have you as their keynote speaker. Reven stared at the invitation. Return to Pinehurst. Stand at the same podium where Principal Walsh had once made hollow promises about diversity. Address the students who now walked halls made safer by her refusal to accept injustice. She thought about that February day, the chemical smell of glue, Grayson's sneer, the moment she'd decided that enough was enough. She thought about her mother, who'd taught her that FBI badges weren't the only way to fight crime. Sometimes, the most powerful weapon was simply the truth, recorded and shared until it couldn't be ignored. As Reven left Pinehurst for the second and final time, she carried with her the knowledge that some victories couldn't be measured in verdicts or settlements. They were measured in the students who now felt safe to speak up, in the policies that protected rather than silenced, in the slow but inexorable transformation of an institution that had once seemed untouchable. The glue had long since been cleaned from locker 347, but its impact remained not as a symbol of oppression, but as a reminder that even the strongest adhesive couldn't hold down the truth forever.